Hey everybody, this is the Alex Manassa, and today we're going to talk about how schools do when it comes to getting resilience, critical thinking, right? Which, I'm going to give you a spoiler alert, I don't think they do a very good job of it. I think you all know that. I mean, schools have been saying we're going to improve critical thinking for decades, right? And you think they've figured out by now, right? I mean, it's been one of the top things on their list. So how is it failing, right? Why are we not getting what we really want, which is students who can think critically? Also, the new buzzword that's been coming around is resilience, which to me is pretty hilarious. Because, as you will see soon, the whole structure of how a public school functions makes critical thinking and resilience almost impossible to teach. Right? It's just, honestly, you're using the wrong tool to do the job. You need to use the right tool for the job. Public school is the wrong school. Public school is the wrong tool. School and tool rhyme. All right, so critical thinking, let's define it really quick. If you ask 10 people what they think critical thinking means, they're going to give you 10 different answers. So this one's mine, right? Critical thinking should allow you to evaluate ideas. Okay? So when you're evaluating ideas, what you're doing is you're assigning them a worth, right? This idea is better than that idea. You put them against each other. You see if they can argue out who's better. And you're going to use evidence, you're going to use all these different things, all these different forensic tools at your disposal to debate your way internally or externally among your peers of which idea is better, right? This is what's supposed to happen. This is pretty much how philosophy started, was a bunch of people arguing, mostly men, arguing in ancient Greece and in ancient China and other places where like the philosophical schools started, right? They're evaluating ideas, trying to find out which idea is best. Okay? Big problem about this one is that how do you evaluate an idea if you're graded on your ability to not necessarily accept, but then to say that a certain idea is the right way to go? In other words, you're telling people to evaluate ideas, but schools push forward what is the right idea, right? They grade you on your ability to know something. And when you say, oh, we're just giving students information, they can internalize this or not. That's not how children work. I mean, I'm not a child expert, but if you push a bunch of information into a child's head, they internalize it and make it part of them. That's kind of what children do. So if I go around and I start saying that, X is Y, take this test and you say it says X equals and they have to fill out Y on there, and then they get 100% if they get it right, which is to say X equals Y, and they get a 0% if they get it wrong. Like, what idea are they going to hold in their head, right? First off, having a single body that also is the one that's in charge of putting this together for you, this bundle of ideas that we push onto students, having a singular body ends up making it so they don't actually diversify the ideas given. There's a ton of stuff in history that I did not know about until I looked up I looked it up on my own, right? I found out from I watched Scott Adams, who in turn watched, was it Jacob Blake's dad? He had a bunch of anti-Semitic tweets. But then you look at some of the tweets and you're like, he's got a point. Like, he said people talk about Hitler all day long, but they never talk about King Leopold from Belgium. I think that was the name, and I think that was the kingdom, right? I never learned about King Leopold from Belgium. Apparently he killed a lot more people than Hitler did down in, Belgian Congo or something like that. It was straight up murder constantly. So if you start having all these different things, right? I mean, there's a reason why everyone jumps to the Nazi argument. You'd think there'd be a diversity of arguments, but everyone just says, that's a Nazi, that's a Nazi. We just talk about how Nazi that is or not. That's so Nazi, right? That's because we get fed the exact same information all the time. How can you evaluate ideas if there's no diversity of ideas? You get one textbook on ancient Sumeria, let's say, right? If it would make so much more sense if schools let students bring in their own books or something. If you really want to teach critical thinking, let the students ask their parents to recommend a book. Now, some parents are going to be like, I don't know. Let's say it's the Civil War, right? Some parents are going to be like, I don't know. But some parents are going to say, hey, here's this book on Nathan Bedford Forrest that paints him as a hero. Here's another book that, another student brought in that paints him as a villain. Let's have a discussion about that. That is an uncomfortable conversation to have. If, for anyone who doesn't know, Nathan Bedford Forrest is the guy who founded the KKK. Most people also don't know that he left the KKK because he said they got way too violent. I guess he just wanted to form a fraternity and just do pranks on people and stuff and scare. And it got way too violent and way out of hand, and he left it. He had to do a bunch of soul searching, and one of the speeches he gave later in life was, it sounded like something out of the civil rights era. You got to look it up. And he was basically once was lost, now was found kind of situation. You don't ever hear about that. You never hear about Nathan Bedford Forrest's redemption in the eyes of the black community that he lived with. You don't really care. You just want to tear the statue down, which is fine. You can tear a statue down. I would like if there was a statue of him sort of hunched over but being supported by the black community in that area, and how they're forgiving him, and he's looking up and seeing the light. That would be kind of nice. Instead he's on a big horse back when he was a total racist. What are you going to do, right? Anyways, evaluating ideas, critical thinking, measuring approaches. Okay? I hear a lot of criticism. So, engineers, right? I'm an engineer, that's my shtick. We criticize constantly, and we're constantly measuring the approach. So, if I'm going to, make a support beam out of, tempered steel, and someone else wants to make it out of mild steel, we're going to go have a discussion about it, right? We're going to talk about which one's the best. Maybe he or she says that, the mild steel is cheap and it's strong enough. I say let's be safe and let's add a factor of, safety margin on top of it. And then, we present our cases to the management. Management makes a decision, and then we go back to our cubicles and think of something else to argue about this tractor or whatever it is we're building, right? Measuring approaches. How many schools do you think right now are actually talking about Donald Trump's COVID-19 response in a way that's let's frame who is, people who are pro-Trump or something, and people who are anti-Trump, or people who had a totally different third approach altogether, you're not going to see that. You're going to see one version of what was the right thing and what was the wrong thing. You're just going to hear the same dirges all day long of I'm trying to think. Everyone says the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell kind of crap. It's just this rote stuff that we've accepted. The biggest BS I've ever heard in my life was that America was isolationist. Oh, we were isolationist, right? Before World War II or something. Oh yeah, we're isolationists. Back when France, in the time period where France gave us a statue for accepting so many immigrants. Oh yeah, we're isolationists, right? With tons of shipping that we did. They usually refer to the pre-World War II or pre-World War I time as us being isolationists. Oh yeah, when we were inventing things and creating airplanes and doing God knows what. We're having international competitions. Oh yeah, the isolationists are hosting this year's World's Fair. What's stupid? Oh, you don't go to... It's non-interventionist, right? Isolationist. Oh gosh. I guess it's a way to cast aspersions on the fact that we just didn't go into foreign wars very much. We had a period from the Philippine War up to World War I where we weren't getting into any of that, or trying not to, right? So, okay. So, once you've evaluated ideas and you start measuring approaches, you have what starts to look like critical thinking, right? I heard a tweet. I wish I could credit him. His name's Dan. He's a school teacher who's against school teachers unions, and the way he described critical thinking was that it was putting together information to make a decision. I think that's kind of part of it, but when you're critical of something, you are criticizing something, right? You're basically weighing something as a value. So which is the best approach, right? Next one. Resiliency. Do you know how easy it is to pass school these days and just get your diploma? It is extremely easy. The standards are constantly slipping. It is constantly responsive to whining parents. Kids will call in or have their parents call in and say, I got a B, it's the first B I ever got in my life. It should be the first one, and really it shouldn't have been. There's probably other ones that should have been a B before. And the school system just caves. It just caves because there's no reason to not cave. You don't want complaints. This thing is, this isn't democratized. This is like mob rule when it comes to how parents and teachers interact. If the teacher was like, I don't know why teachers actually cave into this, because I hear they're supposed to be tenured, right? They're supposed to be tenured. You work for like 2 years and then you're supposed to have a job for life or something like that. Why would you ever cave? I guess because you don't want to hear complaints. I'd go tell the parents to stuff it, right? My dad is from Indonesia, so he's fully Indonesian. He told me how schools were back then. Like right now, my nails are dirty, right? If I had my dirty nails and I went into school like that, they would smack me with a ruler, right? I would be going into school on Saturday, right? They would pretty much pound me into shape, which is kind of what you need to do and why we have so many soft people. If you take a look at these colleges, I mean, the school system has been producing the softest generation I've ever seen in my life. Like I feel like a lot of these young people that I see who are coming out of college right now, they couldn't even get a parking ticket, right? If you stop them in their car, they'd complain to the officer or something or freak out. You know, I can't even give criticism, right? Like, if you want resiliency, you need to give negative feedback. Right? If you want negative feedback, be an engineer. We are really good at it. We're kind of really bad at it too. We're kind of over that. We'll just lay on. We'll just lay into you, real bad. But it's good practice. You should get used to negative feedback. We get a lot of it. You should get a lot of it. If you're an artist and you don't get any negative feedback, you're not going to be a good artist, right? You hear about all the great artists and all the great inventors and all these great people. They struggled for a long time, or they had just really good parents or mentors, right? They were rejected. They were cast out. They were, aspersions were cast. Even like guys like Sir Isaac Newton, he dealt with a lot of negativity. He was also dealing out a lot of negativity. He was just a real jerk, but he did amazing work being a jerk, right? These students these days can't take any negativity. There's always makeup tests. There's bonus points that you can get. I remember I had a disciplinarian. I don't know what his job actually was. His name was Mr. McDuffie over at Crofton Middle School. I think you just go in there and yell at you. I don't know what his job was. He would just come into the classroom and be like, your teacher didn't feel like showing up that day, so Mr. McDuffie is now in charge. He's like, you're gonna do the assignment. It's on the board. You got an hour. It's just barely enough time. Go do it. And you'd go through and you're doing the assignment. He's like, it's either 100% or 0%. 100% is 0%. And I'm like working my butt off, and all the other kids in the classroom are kind of goofing around and just being kids. My dad's Asian, so I don't get to be like a kid like normal Americans usually get to be a kid, right? So I finished my assignment, I handed it in. He's like, "Good job, Alex. You did a great job." I'm like, "Thank you." I think all the rest of the students got a 0. And they were really upset about it. But Mr. McDuffie was just a middle school disciplinarian. 100% and 0% is a lesson you got to learn. A lot of things are 100% or 0%, right? If you have I'm going to get a little current eventy on you. If you have a protest and there's like one horrible violent event that happens at the protest, that's not a protest anymore, right? You guys need to clear it out, okay? So the police can go do their jobs. Or else you're just covering for the horrible thing that happened. Like if just one person just got stabbed like 100 times in the middle of the crowd. It's like, no, you need to disperse now. A happy protest time is over. You got to let the cops come in here, okay? And then your protest looks terrible, right? If the media is actually doing its job, they'll say like some person is stabbed 100 times at the protest. They wouldn't say it's peaceful. They would color it as not peaceful, right? It would be terrible. Think of any protest that's done by anyone conservative right now and see if they can get away with a single incident, right? Sometimes it's 100% or 0%. Resiliency also means multiple chances. Okay? The way that we structure our school system right now is we have year, and if you don't pass like English, clunk, you go back, right? It doesn't make immediate sense to me why if your math was really bad, all of a sudden you were just ripped apart from your entire social circle. That is horrible. So a lot of people don't want to fail a student. They'll give them lots of chances and they'll be able to get in there. But that's like lots of chances as in the wrong way that will make things a little easier for them. A student should be able to give, like, a good example would be a final exam for a class. I think it should be really hard. I think you should be able to take it as many times as you want. Honestly. Like, resiliency also means that you see other people do stuff better than you, right? So losing, multiple chances, casually falling behind. Not like in this horrible, catastrophic, social circle destroying way of falling behind, which we do in schools. It should be just like, oh man, I could do a little bit better than that. I think one of the best learning environments and development environments is probably a friendly neighborhood gym, right? Where people are getting along and you have people of all different weights, trying to do their exercises, and you get encouragement from people and you're learning techniques and you're learning how to do different things. And then eventually you graduate to the next weight set and you're cool. And you're still talking with your buddy who's there. He's just on, 85 pounds and you're on 90 pounds, It's not a big deal. But the way the school is structured is that it's all or nothing. In the worst ways, right? All or nothing is okay sometimes. All or nothing is bad other times, right? If I had a math test or something, I would probably say, like, you can take it as many times as you want. You can take it as long as you want to take it, within reason. But it's like 100% or 0% just for the one test, though. You can sit there on a weekend and you can bang it out, try it a couple times or something like that. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. This series is called Thinking Out Loud. If you want to teach resiliency, you have to allow for micro failures so you can build up to a macro success, right? Multiple chances, lots of negative feedback, come back with it, when you're done. If you're a blacksmith's apprentice or something, that would probably also be a really good analogy to use. You're going to try to make your journeyman's piece, right? You start out as an apprentice, then you become a journeyman, then become a master. You're going to keep trying to make your journeyman's piece so you can graduate to becoming a journeyman, and you're going to work on that thing constantly. Just, all right, okay, that one didn't work, time to melt it down, try it again. Okay, I tried this technique and I screwed it up, I couldn't keep the temperature right. Shoot, I messed up. And then finally you're like, it's all come together and I've got it. And boom, you're a journeyman. Great, The way we do school right now is so lockstep. It just doesn't work for resiliency. And the way that, I don't know what's going on with teachers and why they can't fail students these days. It might just be that they have no reason not to. Like, if I've got parents calling me up and complaining and screaming and people sending me nasty letters, I'll just be like, fine, he gets a D, just get out of my class. Yeah, we could do better. But I think it's very laughable that critical thinking and resiliency are what schools are after right now, and you are specifically structured to not allow these things to grow, right? Critical thinking, ask yourself, are you allowed to argue with your teacher? Because if I'm a philosopher, I get to argue with my students a bit. We have a discussion. There's a protocol of how to do it right, so it's respectful and productive, but you argue with your teacher, and your teacher has to stand on their own 2 feet, or you take your 2 feet and you just walk across the agora to go find a new teacher, right? Because that one's not working for you. Like, critical thinking requires that you debate and argue. It doesn't have to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. But I should be able to criticize my teacher. That's not going to happen. If I tell them that I don't think mitochondria is the powerhouse to cell, I don't know what the hell that even means. I'm going into detention. I'm going to get punished for critical thinking. How are you going to teach critical thinking when you punish critical thinking? Maybe you would make it in a different form, but so long as it's insubordinate to question your teacher, it's just not going to happen. All right, I'm chattering on. You guys have a good one. This has been the Alex Manassa. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time.